Welcome to Federal Features, the podcast designed exclusively for the backbone of our nation, federal employees. Join your host, Mamadou Bojang, as each week we dive into the stories, insights, and tips about your federal benefits and retirement. Buckle up as we embark on a journey to demystify your benefits and retirement so that you can make smart and confident choices and retire happily ever after.
Welcome to Tariffs and Your Nest Egg, navigating retirement in a shifting economy. I'm Alex, your host for today, and with me is our financial expert, Mamadou Bojang. Today we're diving into the basics of tariffs and their economic impact. Ever wondered how global trade policies could affect your retirement savings? Stay tuned to find out.
Hey, Alex, I am super excited to be here. My God, the topic could not come like at a better time, right? At times where people are really, really scared with what's happening with the market, mainly because of tariffs, right? So this is a very, very important topic, and the timing could not be better. So I'm super excited to dive into this.
Yeah. Well, we're excited you're here. Yeah. Let's start with the basics, Mamadou. Can you explain what tariffs are and why they're implemented?
Yeah, so tariffs are taxes that the administration usually uses to protect domestic industries. And also, they use it as kind of like to retaliate against what they call unfair trade practices, right? So think of it as a toll booth, right? When you're driving through a toll, obviously you have to pay a fee, right? So a toll booth is also like, when goods come in from overseas or outside of the U.S. and they come in, well, they have to pay a tax on that. They have to pay tariffs on that. Now, what that will do is to make that item to be very, very expensive, right? So therefore, it will discourage people, like domestic folks in the U.S., to buy that because it's going to be very expensive. So in that sense, what they're trying to do is to encourage people to buy things that are made locally. That's the whole point of like tariffs, yeah. But it could be it's a very interesting thing. It could go either way, right? It could work well, but it can also go like sideways, where it can make it really hard. It can lead into kind of like recession, if you will, right? But yeah, that's what tariffs is all about. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's very interesting. Can you give us an historic example of how tariffs have impacted the economy?
Yeah, so we've seen that in 1930, I mean, if you're a historian, right? So you look at the Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act. Well, that was supposed to be more like, to protect like American farmers, right? But we've seen what happened. It ended up it wasn't a Great Depression, right? And it really like, stifling international trade. So think of it, it's like putting up a fence, right? To protect a garden, right? But accidentally, what you're not looking at is like you're blocking the sunlight, right? And then rain that's needed to kind of like grow those plants, right? So and what I will do is the plant that you're trying to protect, it could actually kind of like go the opposite. So that's why it's important when and then how and you impose those your tariffs, right? It's a tactic that they use, right? But it could go either way. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about the recent tariffs that imposed by the U.S. government.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the key tariffs that are currently in place?
Well, it's hard to say because we know that this administration, they go, today is going to be something, next day is going to be a different thing, right? But one of the main goods that they actually are trying to put tariffs on are usually like steel and aluminum, right? Obviously, and electronics. If you look back at the history where factories in the Midwest actually left the U.S. to go somewhere like Mexico and all of that. So what they're trying to do is to bring those back. So those items, like let's say, for example, automobile, like a car that they produce in Mexico. Well, if the administration goes in and put a tariff on that, it's going to make that car to be expensive. So the industries or the companies, the car companies that are doing that, they're going to have to look at it and say, okay, do we want to pass that on to the consumer, or do we want to relocate some of our industries to go to the U.S.? That way, we don't have to pay the tariff, right? So the question that they have to ask themselves is, like, okay, well, if we pass that on to the consumer, well, are they going to buy that product? Well, just think of yourself as an example. If you have a budget to buy $25,000 to buy like a Ford or something like that, but now that's going to cost you $30,000. Well, you're probably going to have to say, well, I'm going to wait.
Indeed.
Well, you're going to have to wait because it's probably out of your budget, so you're going to have to wait. So if those companies, they end up putting those tariffs on, giving that towards the consumer, well, they might also see their sales actually going down. So what they have to kind of reconcile over here is to say, well, do we want to move that industry, those factories to the U.S.? That way we can produce it over here. That way we don't have to pay the tariff, and the cost becomes cheaper for the U.S. citizens, right? So yeah, it's a very tough things to kind of juggle, right? But it could go either way. But that's what's happening now. Yeah.
Sounds quite delicate.
Yeah.
Can you share a real life example of an industry affected by these tariffs?
Yeah. An example would be like I said, aluminum or steel. These are things that we need them. We need them to construct buildings. We need them to construct like the cars and all of that, right? So if you put tariffs on those, that could have a significant impact, especially in those industries. It could have a significant impact, and therefore, people are probably not going to buy their products, right? So, and we've seen that now. But if you look at last week, yesterday, when we look at the job reports that actually came out, that's actually one good news in there. I think about over 220 something thousand jobs, right? That are actually coming up, and a majority, some of those are actually coming from towards like in manufacturing. So that's actually a bright side, right? It could definitely impact an industry like automobile industry. I think which we all drive cars, right? It's America. We have to. Most of the time, you need a car to go from one place to another. I mean, I know some people will probably take the subways and all that, but you probably need a car, right? Yeah.
Quite right. Why does the administration impose a tariff? What can they do for our economy?
Yeah. I think the main thing here is they're trying to encourage for people to buy American. That's what they're doing. So I think when this administration came in, they're looking at to say, okay, well, let's say a country like China as an example. Well, if you are a business owner, you produce something to ship to China, well, they put maybe like 64% tariff. Well, if China is producing stuff there and then they bring it over here, we put 10%. So what it does is it creates more job in China than the U.S. And then we got to think about it from a U.S. point of view. We are the global superpower. We consume more of those products than probably any other country out there. So while I understand sometimes why the administration might do that, sometimes you got to think about how you go about it, because if you don't go about it the right way, it could have like the opposite effect in terms of what you want, right? And then clearly we have seen that with the market yesterday and also 2 days ago. We've seen the market back to back over 1,000 points down. Well, what the administration is saying, well, that's going to be a short-term pain, but a long-term gain. Right? So I think as financial advisors, what we are looking at now is to see, okay, well, how is this going to play out? If it's short-term, well, what does that mean? Is it going to be a week? Is it going to be a month? But if this kind of like drags on to maybe like 6 months, a year, like we could lead into a much, much worse situation. So hopefully that would not happen. Hopefully, right? So my message to folks is just just calm down. Don't do anything. Make sure that you talk to your financial advisor and be able to make smart and confident choices. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Thank you. We've covered a lot. Let's address some common questions from our listeners about tariffs and their economic impact.
Yeah, so some of the questions that we come across, especially in the office over here, when the phone rings, a lot of times people are just concerned with their retirement portfolio. I mean, well, our clients are usually we have a very good plan for them. They know that, and then we've tested that plan. But most of the questions that are coming from these are people or people that maybe they have not been in touch with their financial advisor, or they're probably doing it what we call a do-it-yourself investor, right? Now, all of a sudden, they've seen their portfolio going from maybe like $1 million or whatever it is to going down to like probably what, $800,000. Well, that's frightening. Well, the question is, number one question is like, well, do I want to get out of the market? Well, I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. Well, if you get out of the market, well, where are you going to go? Right?
Really good question.
Right? And then, well, if you take all of your money and then put it in cash, well, now you have actually created a loss for yourself. Because all what we're seeing here, if you did not do anything, is just a paper loss. So you have not actually even realized that loss yet. But if you panic and then go in and sell that, then now you've created a loss for yourself. Well, then what do? You go in and put that money in cash. But the question that you have to ask yourself is, when do you get back into the market? Well, now you get into a territory whereby you are trying to time the market. And then in timing the market, Alex, we know that you have to be right 2 times. When to get out and then when to get in. And for most people, you know what the stat is? 0 for 2. so 0 for 2. So my advice is, just make sure that you don't inject emotions into this, right? I know it's a tough time. I know it's not fun to look at your retirement assets and then see that, kind of like going down, the value going down. But we also have to remind ourselves as, well, that is not a real loss. It's a paper loss. So maybe this is the best time for you to actually go and meet with your financial advisor, strategize again, and make sure that validate your plan. Make sure that whatever your plan is, whether you can still feel confident in that. And if you feel confident in that plan, maybe the best thing is like just stay put, right? We know that if history is a lesson, well, we've been through a lot. We've been through the tech bubble. We've been through the real estate bubble, right? And then we've also been through COVID. And then those are scary, scary times. Whereas we've seen the market going down 1,000 points, it's just a very, very scary time. But even though with all of those, we actually came out of those. And then the market actually came back up. Now, I always tell people, I say, you should not pay a financial advisor to tell you that, just stay. When the market goes down, it'll come back up, right? That's just, you don't need a financial advisor. You don't need to pay a financial advisor to hear that, right? But my point here is, hopefully a financial advisor will be able to kind of like put a strategy in place for you to validate that, right? And then my worry is these are times people will make the biggest financial mistake in their lifetime, because they're going to end up like doing things that are going to be contrary to what their retirement goals are. And then if they keep on doing that over and over again, Alex, retirement could be one of those whereby they probably would not be able to retire, or then they'll have to go depend on their kids, right? But if they don't have kids, then it becomes even a bigger problem. So hopefully, and this is when I tell people, our job is very rewarding, but also we are making a profound impact in people's life, making so that people can make smart and confident choices, and that way they can retire happily ever after.
Well, that is outstanding, and thank you for sharing your insights, Mamadou, and your expertise. If you have any more questions or any other topics you'd like to cover, you'd like us to cover, feel free to reach out. Until next time, happy investing.
Until next time, stay informed, stay financially savvy, and keep shining as the backbone of our great nation. This has been Federal Features. Your benefits, your future. We've got you covered. Axiom Value Wealth Management LLC is a registered investment advisor. This platform is solely for informational purposes. Investing involves risk and possible loss of principal capital. Likes, endorse, and approve are not intended to be endorsements of our firm, our advisors, or our services. Please be aware that while we monitor comments left on this page, we do not endorse or necessarily share the same opinions expressed by site users. While we appreciate your comments and feedback, please be aware that any form of testimony from current or past clients about their experience with our firm is strictly forbidden under current securities laws. Please honor our request to limit your post to industry-related educational information and comments. Third-party rankings and recognitions are no guarantee of future investment success and do not ensure that a client or prospective client will experience a higher level of performance or results. These ratings should not be construed as an endorsement of the advisor by any client, nor are they representative of any one client's evaluation.